wondered, I said it on this show about Tony Romo, coming from where he came from to the heights he reached as the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, which is, in fact, once upon a time it was center field for the Yankees, point guard for the Lakers. Quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys is or heavyweight champion of the world. Quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys in this country is the #1 job in sports. Got the huge contract, a couple of them actually. He made it. Maybe that was his Super Bowl.
Okay.
Maybe he was satisfied with that.
Well, say no more. I see he's coming. I see he's coming along.
No,
you're getting there. You're getting there.
I just say he's happy because he's taken over a winning team in his mind.
Really?
That's just me.
Okay.
The answer to the question
you
is
would
no.
say that because, you know, it's Molly going to find a silver lining. Now, I hear you. I hear you.
Sorry, someone's got to be optimistic. We want you guys to weigh in. Did Tony Romo lose his job on Sunday? Go to the First Take Twitter page and vote. We'll share those results a little later in the show. But meanwhile, another player got to see him up close and personal Sunday. That would be Adam Jones. He had thoughts on the rookie's day. Jones followed up on his comments about the Cowboys' offensive line after saying earlier in the week that his daughter could run through the holes they made, telling our Catherine Terrell, "They were better than I thought. I take my hat off to them. Now I see why he has $100 million on his line. Those guys blocked their butts off. Like I said last week, some of those holes my daughter could have run through today." Stephen A., should Jones be quiet?
Yes, he should be quiet. But it's not because he was disrespectful or anything like that. He should be quiet because the Cincinnati Bengals, yet again, are not living up to expectations. They have the 25th ranked offense. They were ranked 25th with their passing game as well as their rushing game. Somehow, some way, did you see them sitting there and bickering on the sidelines or whatever? Now, obviously, you're getting beat up by Dallas's offensive line. That doesn't help matters at all. But they had secondary issues as well, which Pac-Man Jones couldn't even deny. In the end, what it comes down to is, yet again, we find ourselves looking at the Cincinnati Bengals and wondering what the hell is going on with this team. Marvin Lewis is the coach of this team. And, Max, I wanted to bring this up because I want to make sure that I'm very, very clear. I am an individual that has been on the record, you know, particularly more so with college sports than it is with pro sports in terms of talking about the paucity of African Americans that are in head coaching positions, okay? But I'm also that guy. I pride myself in being fair. When Lovie Smith only made the playoffs 3 times in 9 years, it's time for him to go out of Chicago. Now, I don't give a damn where you go, but you need to get the hell out of Chicago. And I have been calling for Marvin Lewis to be gone for years. 5 consecutive years. And 6 of the last 7 years, the Cincinnati Bengals have been to the playoffs. They have not won one single playoff game. He has been the head coach for 12 complete seasons. They have not won a single playoff game. And the chances are the only reason he still has his job is because he's one of those dudes who's willing to come cheap. Because whereas other coaches get paid $6 or $7 million a year, Marvin Lewis will step 3 or 3.5, and they have the audacity, the temerity, the unmitigated gall to go to other players and talk to them about how they should be willing to settle for less. Trust me, I know this because I know members in the Cincinnati Bengals locker room who have personally told me that Marvin Lewis has gone up to them, trying to encourage them to accept less than what their market value may be, because that's something he would do. I'm looking at this guy right now. 5 consecutive years in those 6 of those last 7. Do you know what else, Max, that I forgot to mention? Do you know each of them was a wild card game? So not only did you make the playoffs, okay, but you were never one of the top 2 seeds any year, which means that all of those years that you were in the playoffs, even when you won a division, you still had to play the wild card game because you were the 3rd seeded team. This dude doesn't get it done. It's just that simple. And for me, to look at the Cincinnati Bengals yesterday, both of us thought that this is the game that Dallas is going to lose. This is the game because Cincinnati's talent is undeniable. They got talent all over the place that any team in the NFL should want. But there is something missing from this bunch. And I believe it is a head coach that they're fearful of holding them accountable. I believe it's a head coach that has come up short on too many occasions. I am not saying that Marvin Lewis doesn't know football. I am not saying that he doesn't have the acumen to be a head coach. I am not saying that he can't be a defensive coordinator or something else in the NFL. I am saying when it comes to being a leader of men, in terms of galvanizing them to maximize their potential in a focused and cohesive manner, this man has religiously and continuously failed to show up. If it were anybody else, I'm going to go a step further. In some situations, if it was a white coach, they'd have been out of here by now. How this man still has this job is beyond me, and yesterday was the latest example of it because, again, they disappoint you when you don't expect them to. It's who they are under Marvin Lewis.
I don't think that's fair at this moment in time. Would have been fair 2 years ago. Might be fair at the end of this season. I'm going to answer the question in a second. I just want to respond to the Marvin Lewis
I appreciate the fact that you said it's not fair because I think that's insane. Go ahead.
I think it's not fair at this moment in time because, yeah, you're never one of the top 2 seeds really playing in the wild card game. You're in the playoffs every year. The thing about the NFL is make the playoffs, you got a shot. As a Giants fan, I know that in the not-too-distant past, 2 Super Bowls as a result of being the wild card.
Yes, we know.
Okay.
You and your Giants.
So, you're right about that. Now, Marvin Lewis, you could make that argument a couple years ago, but a funny thing happened last year. There were signs that the Bengals were going to be dangerous in the playoffs, particularly coming from Andy Dalton. Not huge, glaring kind of signals, but little signs. He played better in primetime games than he had in the past, or even than he had during other games in the regular season, and he had a very good regular season last year. He played better in the fourth quarter. His production ticked up instead of down. I thought there were little signs that were going to be very interesting to see. It begged the question, how would he do in the playoffs this year, meaning last year? And he got hurt. So for the first time in, maybe since Marvin Lewis started making the playoffs with the Bengals, it was really, I think, an open question. You know what? The Bengals might actually do something. They were one of the most well-balanced teams in the NFL last year. Then he lost his starting quarterback. You can't hold those playoffs against him. And it's very early in this season. If at the end of this season they either don't make the playoffs or get bounced again in the first round, it would be fair to say that. But at this moment, it's a little unfair.
Well, first of all, I'm very touched that you're interested in being fair to Marvin Lewis. It's very, very touching. You want some tissue? I mean, you got any tissue? You want some? Because you're so touched by because you want to be fair to Marvin Lewis. Let me tell you. Well, you are a fair-minded individual. But let me tell you this, Max Kellerman. You know why you're so wrong about this? I mean, so wrong? Because, Max, he should have gotten fired immediately after they lost to Pittsburgh last year in the playoffs. You've got the game won, a complete meltdown with the Vontaze Burfict. I don't hold that against Pac-Man Jones so much, but Vontaze Burfict, you understand what I'm saying? And you got to remember the way he had sacked Ben Roethlisberger a few plays earlier and then kept kneeing him in the ribs and stuff like that. He got away with that, getting an interception, or if it was an interception or fumble, I don't recall, then running into the tunnel. Just a whole bunch of overreactions, like guys conducting themselves as if they already had something won when that wasn't the case.
That's a compelling point. But you haven't held that against Vontaze Burfict.
Time out. He is a player under contract who got suspended. What I'm trying to say to you is that he's not responsible for the overall
So let's talk about the guy who is responsible for it. Without his starting quarterback, they were in a position to win the game against the Steelers.
No. I said to you, cumulative and collective. Those are the key words here. I'm sure you can appreciate that, okay?
Well, because that's trending in the right direction.
Well, let me tell you why. No, it's not. And I'm going to tell you why. Because he's been on a job for 12 full years. He has never ever won a playoff game. What about your fan base? What about the people in Cincinnati? What about how do you sit up there with a straight face and think it's okay for a man to not win a playoff game in a decade? In a decade!
Right, but
I mean, year after year after year.
That's why it would have been fair 2 years ago. But there were signs last year that they were heading in the right direction.
But they made the playoffs 3 years before 2 years ago.
Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. To get to the point where you're blaming a lack of discipline, which you're placing on the coach, even though when I say Odell Beckham's a contagion for the Giants, you'll talk about those other players are grown men. Okay. They're responsible for their own behavior. Somehow Vontaze Burfict isn't responsible for his behavior. Marvin Lewis is. They were in a position to win the game against your mighty Steelers without Andy Dalton.
First of all, don't be
want to get rid of the coach now?
Don't be slick. I never sat up there and said that Vontaze Burfict doesn't deserve punishment or anything like that. I'm just saying he's a player. So you're responsible for your job description. He is the head coach and has come up short for 12 years.
I would like to address that question now. I'd like to address the original question now about should Adam Jones be quiet? Should Pac-Man Jones be quiet? You and I are on the same page about Pac-Man Jones. Now, he was involved in a very serious crime not all that long ago. Well, no, that needs to be said. However,
why does that need to be said now?
It's because when it colors people's opinions of Pac-Man Jones. So I understand why people are quick.
But Pac-Man Jones has been a model citizen for 4 years.
If you'd let me get to the point,
Okay, go ahead.
I agree with that. While that may color your opinion, and that is true, the fact is last year in the playoffs, when Burfict and Pac-Man Jones had the finger pointed at them, in fact, Burfict deserved it, Pac-Man Jones did not deserve it. He didn't do anything out of line or uncalled for in that game. And here, Pac-Man Jones is being asked direct questions by Catherine Terrell,
right,
who is doing a story on the Cowboys' offensive line. You know why?
Why?
Because the real story is the Cowboys' offensive line. And Pac-Man Jones is here telling the truth. He said, look, Ezekiel Elliott's a beast. He was. I didn't see, like, incredible lateral movement, but when he hit a hole, boy, he was gone. But the holes were there because of the Cowboys' offensive line, which a couple years ago made DeMarco Murray look like a top 5, maybe top 3 running back because he was a good running back playing behind a very good line.
Right.
That was a very good line a couple years ago. It's the same guys, more mature, better than they were then, and Ezekiel Elliott is now a very good running back running behind a great offensive line. Pac-Man Jones answered questions, pointing that out, no problem.
Wait a minute. But you're talking about what he had to say about the Cowboys, and we're asking the question, was he out of line with what he said? I'm saying you're out of line, even though he wasn't insulting or disrespectful. He's out of line because it doesn't speak to the problem that are the Cincinnati Bengals. In other words, you're talking about the Dallas Cowboys like, oh, anybody could do. They'll do that to anybody.
They're 4-1.
Well, then that's not anybody, is it? The Giants, it didn't happen against the Giants.
Week 1, the Giants.
Wait a minute. All I'm saying to you is this.
Thank you.
If you are Pac-Man Jones and the Bengals with the talent that you have, my problem with what he said is not anything that he said about the Cowboys. You're glossing over the deficient bunch that you are as the Cincinnati Bengals. Those
so what
guys.
Do you to do every time someone asks Pac-Man Jones a question, he goes, "Never mind that question. We're the problem."
Hold on, wait a minute.
Every time.
Hold on. You damn right. So if you're Pac-Man Jones,
they're doing a story about the Cowboys' offensive line.
I'm answering your question. If you are Pac-Man Jones, I don't care what team is in front of you. Look, man. You gonna ask me? I'm gonna answer you. Let me pretend to be Pac-Man Jones because, you know, I've spoken to him on many occasions. Brothers as real as they come. This dude, yo, man, don't give a damn about no Cowboys. You see us? We can't handle our business better than that. We down 28-0. That stinks. Something wrong with us. That's what I'm saying should be coming out of his mouth. It's one thing for the Dallas Cowboys to win a game because of a play here or there and the breaks don't come your way. The Cincinnati Bengals, with this talent, were down 28-0. What? To the Cowboys?
That Cowboys offensive line is devastating. If you fought Mike Tyson in the 80s, well, what happened? I don't know. The dude hits hard. He's fast. He came over the left jab with the right hand. What do you want me to tell you? He's good.
What year did Buster Douglas knock him out?
1990.
Okay.
I said 80s.
You said 80s. Okay. I was just double checking. I was just making sure.
Let's leave it there.
90 or 91.
All right, let's leave it there. Details.